Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's your boy, Delightful Kiss Boy, and I'm back with another Litty Litty Fuego slide deck just for you. And this time, I'm going to be analyzing why you shouldn't shoot yourself in Buckshot Roulette. It's very important. It's a very special topic that's near and dear to my heart, because if you watched my gameplay videos, you will notice that I almost never shoot myself. I think a lot of people know that you shouldn't do it, but they might not know the math behind it or the reasoning behind it. And so I figured, why don't I cover it in a video? And I was thinking to myself, maybe this video isn't even necessary because so many people know about it, to be honest. But I got a barrage of comments on various videos of mine from people saying that I'm playing inoptimally by shooting the dealer when there are more blanks than there are lives. And so I figured, hey, why don't I just make a video about it? And I was also inspired by a video in particular that a lot of people have asked me to react to, similar to what I did for Markiplier. But I don't really want to because I don't think I can add a whole lot to it. And that is Jacksepticeye's latest video, Buckshot Roulette, but I have the worst luck. The reason I didn't think I could really add insightful commentary there is because it's his first run, he's just trying it out. So there's, a difference there between that and Markiplier's video. And honestly, I would just kind of be saying the same thing over and over again, which is mainly don't shoot yourself in this game. It's very important not to do that. And so I figured, hey, why don't I just make a presentation, analyzing the exact reasons why you do not shoot yourself in this game. And so without further ado, let's just get into it, baby. All right. So the first thing I need to establish is we need to ask ourselves, what is the object of this game? Okay? There are two possible objectives that I'm going to propose here, and we're going to talk about which one is the correct one. The first one is it guessing whether the next shell is live or blank? So is it basically shooting yourself when the next one is blank and shooting the dealer when the next one is live, and if you get it wrong, you're playing bad? Is that the objective of the game, to basically deliver every live round possible to the dealer and all blanks to ourselves on our turns? Or is it dealing enough damage to kill the dealer before he kills you? Which of these two do you think it is? I'll give you a hint. It's not the first one. It is the second one. The only thing that we are trying to do here is kill the dealer. It does not matter if we shoot the dealer and it's a blank. If the math is on our side, shooting the dealer and hitting a blank and then giving the turn to the dealer doesn't matter as long as our odds of dealing damage to him, which is ultimately what we need to do to win the game, is better by taking that action. It doesn't matter that we got it quote-unquote wrong. Let me just get into an example. So this is the prime example that somebody who was claiming, hey, you should be shooting yourself in this situation would probably pull up. That besides like having all blanks, right? This one, there is one live and there is 4 blanks. This can only happen if it's a 3 and 4 loadout in endless mode, and you go down to 1 live and 4 blanks, okay? So in this scenario, a lot of people would look at this and think, okay, there are 4 blanks, there's 1 live, there's an 80% chance that the next one is a blank. So I should just shoot myself to get it out of the way so that I have a better chance on the next shot of hitting the dealer, right? Seems intuitive because such a low probability that the next one is live. But once again, what is the objective of the game? The objective of the game is to deal damage to the dealer. It is not to guess what the next shell is. So let's take a look at an example that I've set up to kind of simplify things, all right? So let's imagine that instead of playing Buckshot Roulette, you're playing something similar to Buckshot Roulette, but you and the dealer only have one possible action at any given time. There's no items at all, so we don't have to consider items at all. And both players can only shoot their opponent. You cannot shoot yourself, you can only shoot your opponent. This is just to simplify things to illustrate a point. and you get to go first. You get the first shot. So there's no decision making. This is just you shoot each other back and forth and you see who takes one. All right? So in the 1 live 4 blank scenario, we have 5 different possible loadouts, and they're all equally likely. So the bullets are shuffled, and the live shell can be in one of 5 positions. It can be in the first position, the second position, the third position, the fourth position, or the 5th position. As I said, they are all equally likely. So if we are taking turns shooting back and forth, starting with us, in which of these 5 scenarios are we dealing 1 to the dealer? So let's take a look at the first scenario. The first scenario, we are going first, and there's a live in the first position, and our only option is to shoot the dealer. So we are going to hit the dealer here. We get our little green checkbox right here. That means that we have hit the dealer. We haven't taken one, we've dealt one, and that's good. Let's look at scenario 2. In scenario 2, the first one's blank, so we shoot the dealer, it's a blank, and we miss. And then the dealer gets to go, and he's going to shoot us back and hit us for 1. So we end up taking 1 in this scenario. Now, if you look at this though, we're going to get, let's say that the first 2 are blanks. We're going to get the 3rd shot, and we're also going to get the 5th shot. So on any odd numbered, basically any loadout where the live shell is on an odd position, we are going to be dealing 1. See this? Basically, when it's in the first position, the 3rd position, or the 5th position, we are dealing 1. If the live shell is in an even position, we are going to be taking 1. So that means that in 3 of 5 scenarios, we are dealing 1 here, and in 2 of 5 scenarios, we are taking 1. So we have a 60% chance to hit, and we have a 40% chance to be hit in this scenario, where we're just shooting the dealer back and forth. So, as you can see, even though our first shot only has a 20% chance of hitting, because of the nature of the game where we're shooting back and forth over and over again, because we're going first, by shooting the dealer, if we just shoot every time, we have a 60% chance to hit. Because the game is not classifying the next shell. You're playing a back and forth game. So your odds in this scenario are 60% to hit if you just shoot the dealer. All right, now let's alter the game slightly. There are still no items, and the dealer can still only shoot the opponent, but now we have given ourselves the ability to shoot ourselves. Okay? Very valuable ability, let me tell you. It's going to pay dividends for us. Okay? So let's take a look at different scenarios where the dealer is only going to be shooting us, but we have the option of shooting ourselves. Only upside, right? So let's take a look at the first scenario. Let's say that we just want to shoot ourselves once to improve our odds of hitting a live one on our next shot by getting a blank out of the way. And then we go back to just shooting the dealer every time, right? So we're going to shoot ourselves once, and then if it's a blank, we're going to shoot the dealer, and then he's going to shoot us, and then we're going to shoot the dealer, and he's going to shoot us, all right? So this shell here is the one that we're firing at ourselves, the one in the first position. So in the first scenario here, where the first one is live, we end up taking 1 because we've shot ourselves with a live shell, right? So let's look at the second scenario. The second scenario, we've shot ourselves and we've gotten rid of a blank, and then now the next one is a live one. So we're going to shoot that at the dealer, and we hit, okay? But now all we've done is we basically flipped the hits versus taking a hit from the last scenario where we just keep shooting the dealer. Because now we are dealing 1 on the even positioned live shells. So in the scenarios where there is a live shell on the even positions, that's where we're dealing damage now rather than the odd ones. So we have fewer opportunities to hit the dealer now. If you look at this, we hit it down here too in position 4, but then in positions 3 and 5, we are taking 1. So now in 2 out of 5 scenarios, we are dealing 1, and we are taking 1 in 3 out of 5 scenarios. So we have a 40% chance to hit if we shoot ourselves. So we have gone from having a 60% chance to hit to a 40% chance to hit by just shooting ourselves once, even though there was an 80% chance that the first one was blank. It's interesting, right? It seems like unintuitive. You'd think, hey, most of the time I'm going to be giving myself better odds because I'm getting a blank out of the way, but you're not giving yourself better odds. You're just switching to the even shells, basically. So you've reduced your odds by 20% for no reason, by shooting yourself just once. So let's just go through the rest of the scenarios, maybe thinking, well, okay, that's because you aren't full committing to the strategy of shooting yourself until you get, closer to a chance of hitting the opponent when you shoot them, right? Let's take a look at, another scenario here. Let's shoot ourselves twice before we start shooting the dealer, all right? So you can see here, these first two shells are the ones that we're going to be shooting ourselves with. So now in 2 of the 3 scenarios, the first 2 shells contain a live shell. So we're going to be taking 1 in these 2 scenarios. For the rest of the 3, now let's look at what happens, because if we've made it through the blanks, now we get to a 1 and 2 scenario. And we're just going to start shooting the dealer again after this point, because we supposedly have better odds, right? So in this first scenario, this third scenario here, we actually do end up hitting the dealer. And then in this 5th scenario, we end up hitting the dealer too, because we are on the odds again. We shoot ourselves, we go to the evens, then we shoot ourselves again, we go to the odds again. So in these 2 scenarios here, we're hitting the dealer. In this 1 scenario, we're still taking 1, despite us shooting ourselves this entire time. So, what are our odds now after shooting ourselves twice? 40% once again. So, that's something to note, is that there's actually it's actually neutral in this game where the dealer is always shooting you no matter what, to shoot yourself versus the dealer when there is 1 and 3. If there's 1 live and 3 blanks, if the dealer is always shooting you, it's a toss-up, a coin flip. Either way, if you shoot yourself versus the dealer, you have the same odds of hitting the dealer in a 1 and 3 scenario. However, as you know, that is not how the game works, and I'll come back to that. The dealer isn't always shooting you, but I'll come back to that later. But for now, if the dealer is playing optimally, where he's shooting you every time, doesn't matter if you shoot yourself on the 1 and 3 scenario. Anyway, let's take a look at the next scenario here. We're going to shoot ourselves 3 times. The last one was, 2 times. Now we're going to shoot ourselves 3 times. And now this would be the scenario where you're quote-unquote playing the odds, where you're shooting yourself until you get at least to a 50-50 chance of hitting the dealer with your next shot, right? That's what a lot of people say is the optimal way to play. If there are more blanks than there are lives, then you should shoot yourself, right? Well, let's see what happens if you follow that strategy. All right, so now in the first 3 scenarios, we are taking 1 because there are 3 scenarios where the first 3 shells contain the live. So we're taking 1 in all of those, and then spoiler alert, we are dealing 1 in this one, right here, this 4th scenario, where the 4th shell is the live one, but we're still taking 1 if the last one is live, right? So now we've reduced our chances of hitting the dealer to 1 out of 5. In only 1 out of 5 scenarios, if we're playing the odds, quote unquote, we are dealing a damage to the dealer. So we have gone from 60% odds of hitting the dealer to 20% by following this strategy. It is 3 times worse than if you just shoot the dealer every time. And then finally, we look at our last scenario. I'll just go through this one really quickly. We shoot ourselves 4 times. This one is actually also 20% because basically the only scenario in which we're dealing 1 to the dealer is when there is a live shell in the last position. Okay? You following me so far? So, as you can see here, if you just shoot the dealer every time, you are hitting him 60% of the time. If you're shooting yourself at all, you are at least reducing your odds of dealing 1 to him by 20% or more. All right. Now, you may be asking yourself, but delightful kiss boy, the dealer can shoot himself. He has the free will to do so. He's his own man. He's got coin flips that dictate whether he shoots himself or you. How does that affect your odds? It's a valid question, but let me tell you, it makes your odds even fucking better, bub. All right? It's great. So let's take a look at one scenario to kind of illustrate the point here. So let's say that we are following the strategy where we're only going to be shooting the dealer, but now the dealer, excuse me, is going to, when it gets to his turn, the first turn he gets, he's going to shoot himself twice and then shoot you back, right? So he would get 2 coin flips that make him shoot himself twice, and then he would get a coin flip to shoot you back, all right? Now this is just one possible scenario. As I said, each time he gets a turn, it's going to be a coin flip unless he knows what the shell is, as we've discussed in some of my prior videos. But this is just the scenario I'm setting up, and I just want to use it to illustrate a point. So, in scenario 1, the first one is live. We've shot the dealer, so we're ending up dealing 1. Okay, actually, let me put the little bounding box. These are the 2 shells that the dealer is going to shoot at himself, okay? If he makes it past that point. All right. So, in the first scenario, we are dealing 1 to the dealer because we shoot him every time, and there's a live in the first position, and then the rest are blanks. It doesn't really matter what the dealer does. We've already dealt our 1. Let's say that we have an 80% chance of missing and moving on to any of these 4 scenarios here. In 2 of those 4 remaining scenarios, the dealer is going to shoot himself because, as I said, he's flipped coins, and he's going to be shooting himself in these scenarios, so he's also going to be taking 1 in these 2 scenarios. Now, let's say he makes it through those 2 blanks because they're both blanks and he shoots himself twice and he gets an extra turn. Then the next one is live in this 4th scenario and he's going to deal 1 to us. Unfortunate. But let's say that he shoots us and it's a blank. Then we shoot him for 1. So now, with the dealer shooting himself twice, our odds have gone from 60% chance, as usual, to an 80% chance. So this is to illustrate the point that if he's shooting himself, he is either actively helping us or at least not hurting us. So it is always neutral or worse for him to be shooting himself. He is only benefiting us by doing so. Now, I don't really want to go into the math of it, but it's not super complicated. It's just a little bit harder to explain. But let me just tell you, overall, you have a 65% chance to hit the dealer when there is 1 live and 4 blanks if you only shoot the dealer every time because of his AI. So if he was playing optimally and he was shooting you back every single time, you'd have 60% chance. But because he still has a chance to shoot himself, you actually have a 65% chance. You can crunch the numbers yourself. If people have enough, of a demand to kind of understand how to do that math, I can maybe do a short little video about it. But for now, you can take my word for it and you can, calculate it yourself. But you have a 5% better chance because of the stupid AI of hitting him than if he was playing optimally and shooting you every single time. So him shooting himself only benefits you. There you go. So the game, as I said, the game is not about correctly guessing the next shot. That is not what the game is. The game is about getting as many shots on the dealer as possible. So if we go back, what are the scenarios in which we are dealing the most likely to deal damage? It's the ones, let me just go all the way back here to illustrate a point. It's the ones where we get the most shots. So if we're shooting him and he's shooting us back, and then we're shooting him and then he's shooting us back, the ones that we're most likely to hit are the ones where we get 3 shots on him. We get 20% added to our odds here for every shot that we get on him out of 5 shots. So that's how you should be looking at the game. It shouldn't be on a case-by-case basis, how likely am I to hit a blank? It's how many shots can I get on this motherfucker? All right? That's how you should be framing the game. That is how you will kill him most of the time. All right, so let's get out of here. Let's just get ahead to the next subject. All right. So, another important question. This is not a rule. I mean, it's a rule that you should usually not be shooting yourself, but there's always an exception to the rule. And oftentimes, those circumstances are more interesting than the rule itself. So let's cover when you do shoot yourself, when it's actually optimal to be shooting yourself. They're few and far between. Not few and far between. I do it often enough when I'm playing. If you watch my gameplay, you'll see me shoot myself every once in a while. Also, this slide, don't take it out of context. I'm talking about like in the game. Just in the game. So when do you shoot yourself? Not IRL. I'm talking about Buckshot here, all right? Jesus. Anyway, but you'll see from my gameplay that sometimes I do end up shooting myself. So let's look at a few scenarios in which you actually would want to, when it actually benefits you to shoot yourself. All right. So I have this delightful slide setup. Isn't it beautiful? I spent a lot of time on this shit. Anyway, we have a scenario here. Dealer is at 1 health. Delightful kiss boy, that's me. We are at 2 health here. There is 1 live and 1 blank. We don't know the ordering here. This is just showing what's in the loadout. It could be an arbitrary order. And the dealer over here has a handsaw. So, what do we want to do here? Well, let's take a look at if we just shoot the dealer, as I said to do earlier, right? You always shoot the dealer. Let's see what happens, okay? So if we shoot the dealer, there's a 50% chance that it's going to be a blank. And we immediately die on the dealer's turn, because we're going to miss, and then he's going to get a turn. He knows what the last shell is. He's going to use his handsaw, saw it off, and then shoot us for 2, and we're going to die. There is a 50% chance that it will be alive when we shoot the dealer, in which case we kill the dealer. So half the time he's dying, half the time we're dying. Let's look at, excuse me, let's take a look at what happens when we shoot ourselves here. If we shoot ourselves, there's a 50% chance it's going to be a blank, in which case we end up killing the dealer. So 50% of the time we're killing the dealer, same as above. But now we're killing him if the first one's a blank. There's a 50% chance that it's going to be live, and we're going to take 1 damage, but we didn't saw it off, right? We're not taking 2 damage here, so we actually survive to the next loadout, and we can hope to maybe get handcuffs and magnifying glasses, etc., that will help us close out the round and kill the dealer. So we get an extra turn this way, and we still have the same odds of killing him. So in this scenario, it is objectively correct to shoot yourself first, because your downside is you get another turn. In this scenario, your downside is you're dead. So this is a scenario where it is definitely correct to shoot yourself, no matter what. So let's take a look at, excuse me, I can't speak. Let's take a look at another scenario. This scenario, this time we have the handsaw. We are both at 2. It's still 1 live, 1 blank, as before. But let's take a look at what happens if we shoot at the dealer. This is assuming that we're always going to be using the handsaw here and we're just going for the kill, okay? So, let's take a look at this scenario. When we shoot the dealer, there is a 50% chance that it's going to be a blank, and we will take 1 damage because we'll go to his turn and he's going to shoot us, and we end up losing our handsaw. Because we saw it off to take the 50-50 shot of just killing him right there. There is a 50% chance that it's going to be live, in which case we lose the handsaw. Not that it really matters, because it's the end of the round anyway, because we kill the dealer, and then we end up killing the dealer, right? So 50% chance we take 1 and lose our handsaw, and there's a 50% chance that it's going to be live and we kill the dealer. Let's take a look at what happens if we shoot ourselves. So, if we shoot ourselves, we have a 50% chance that it's going to be blank, in which case we lose the handsaw and kill the dealer, because the next one will be live, we'll know that, we saw it off, we hit him for 2. But let's look at this scenario. So it's the same thing as above for this first one when it's a blank. Let's look at this scenario. There's a 50% chance it's going to be live. All right, we end up taking 1 damage, similar to above, but now we keep our handsaw because we don't need to use it anymore. We're not even going to get another opportunity to use it. So, in this scenario, our downside, if we miss or we hit ourselves, is we take 1 and keep the handsaw. Up here, worst case, we are dealing 1. We're taking 1 and we're losing our handsaw. So it's objectively better in this scenario as well to shoot yourself first in order to attempt to keep your handsaw for the next loadout. And that can be critical because he's at 2, right? We're at 2, he's at 2. And so if we have our handsaw, we have a much better chance of just killing him before he even gets a turn in the next loadout. So it's objectively correct to shoot yourself in this scenario as well. All right, so let's take a look at one more scenario here. So this one is interesting because it is now one live and 2 blanks. We're at 2, he is at 1. He's got a handsaw. So if it ever gets to his turn and he shoots at us and he hits a live one, we're going to die, right? So normally what you would do in this scenario, let's say that we were at 3 or something like that, you would just want to shoot the dealer because you have a 1 out of 3 chance of hitting him, and you have a 2 out of 3 chance of getting to a 50-50, in which case it's a toss-up as to who's going to take the one, you know, whatever. So let's take a look at what happens if we just shoot the dealer. So there's a 66% chance that's going to be a blank. That's a 50% chance to die on the dealer's turn. Because if he shoots at us, he's going to use the handsaw, and he's going to kill us, and we're just going to die, right? And then there is a 33% chance that it will be a live one if we shoot the dealer, and we'll end up killing the dealer, okay? So, that's all good, you know? So 66% of the time, we are going to end up killing the dealer anyway, because 50% of the time, we end up killing him even if we miss the first shot. So our odds are better that we're going to kill the dealer. However, think about this. If we shoot ourselves twice, there is a 33% chance that they're both going to be blank, in which case we kill the dealer anyway. And then there's a 66% chance that we hit a live. But once again, in this scenario, when we hit ourselves with a live, we aren't sawing off the shotgun. We're just taking one and we live to the next loadout. So, if you look at this one, there is a 66% chance to kill the dealer and a 33% chance of dying. In this second scenario here, where we shoot ourselves twice, there is a 66% chance that we take one. There's a 33% chance to kill the dealer, but there is a 0% chance of dying this loadout. So in this scenario, I would probably opt to go for the second option of shooting ourselves twice, because we guaranteed get to the next loadout, and the next loadout I can get some good items that may help me, you know, kill the dealer before he gets another fucking turn, right? I get some handcuffs, I get magnifying glass, etc., etc. I could have a more favorable loadout for hitting him on the first shot. I get like a 1 and 2, I could get a 4 and 4, etc. So I have better odds of killing him, I think, by following the second strategy. Because the first one's just a straight up 2/3 chance. This one, it's going to be a 33% chance of killing, plus the chance of killing him on the first shot in the next loadout. And I haven't done the math on that, but I would assume that that is better than 50-50 most of the time. In which case, it's going to be better odds than taking the 2/3 chance of killing and the 1/3 of dying. So, in this scenario, I would shoot myself, even though for this loadout, my chances of taking damage are higher, right? So, also there's a bonus little nifty, you know, thing, is that there's a 50% chance that he wastes a handsaw if the first shell is live, if we're following this strategy. Basically, if we shoot ourselves and the first one is live, he's going to go, there's going to be 2 blanks left, and he still doesn't know that they're both blanks, so he has a 50-50 shot of shooting us, in which case he's going to waste his handsaw and shoot us anyway. So we get an additional bonus of having him potentially waste his items before we get to the next loadout as well, which wouldn't matter most of the time because we're going to be at 1 in that scenario, but maybe we get smokes in the next loadout, and then he doesn't have a handsaw, and then maybe we have more flexibility and leeway in the next loadout, right? So this is all upside. So I'm thinking that our chances are better by following this strategy of shooting ourselves twice. All right. Now, guaranteed ways of living into the next loadout are generally worth considering, even if the odds of taking some amount of damage is higher. So that's what I was just talking about. I say considering because you're not always going to want to do that, but in that scenario, it was worth considering because I think our odds are actually better, even though our odds are worse in the current loadout. We are guaranteed to get to the next loadout, and we even have a chance of killing him before the next loadout. So I think it's worth doing, and I would say it's always worth considering. All right, so let's take a look at one more scenario here where we may want to shoot ourselves instead of the dealer. All right, this is an interesting one. So he is at 1 health, we are at 3 health. He has 2 packs of smokes here, and we have a pair of handcuffs. So then there's 1 live shell and 2 blanks. So in this scenario, right, using handcuffs doesn't help us. It doesn't increase our chances of hitting the dealer at all. So think about it. There is a 1 out of 3 chance that the last shell is live. Okay? 1 out of 3 chance the last one is live, in which case using handcuffs did nothing for us because we're going to shoot him twice using handcuffs, and the last one's live, and so we miss twice, and then he's going to shoot us back for 1. Okay? So 2/3 of the time, the shell is going to be in the first 2 positions, but that's the exact same odds as if we just shoot him without using handcuffs, right? Because we get a 1 out of 3 chance of hitting him, then it's a 50-50 shot as to who's going to take the additional 1, and so we end up with 2/3 odds overall of hitting him for 1 if we just shoot at him without using handcuffs, and we end up with 2/3 odds of hitting him and shooting him twice with handcuffs, right? So using handcuffs doesn't do anything for us here normally. However, in this scenario, he's got 2 packs of smokes. So if it ever gets back to his turn, he's going to smoke up to 3 health again and be out of lethal range, right? So what I can do here is I can handcuff him, shoot myself once, hope for the 2/3 chance of hitting a blank when I shoot myself, in which case I get a guaranteed win on him. But even in the 1/3 of the time that we end up shooting ourselves for 1, he's still not going to be able to take a turn to smoke back up to 3. We can shoot ourselves 2 more times, and we get to the next loadout with him still at 1 without having been able to smoke back up to 3 out of lethal range. And we have a very good shot of killing him immediately in the next loadout, depending on the items that we get, right? So this is another scenario where shooting yourselves gives you better odds overall because it lets you get to the next loadout while keeping him weak, right? Keeping him with lower health than usual. So I just thought that was an interesting scenario to consider. So let's look at this. Let's look at the times that you want to consider shooting yourself. Basically the criteria in which you may even consider shooting yourself. So when there's 1 live shell left, I basically cannot think of many scenarios at all where there's going to be more than 1 live shell in the loadout left and you want to shoot yourself. There's basically none of them. There's one caveat that I'll get to later, but for the most part, if there's more than 1 live shell left, you can safely dismiss shooting yourself as a valid option at all. Okay? Number 2, when you and or the dealer has a handsaw, that changes the math a bit, because if you're shooting yourself, you are at most taking 1 damage if you hit yourself. If the dealer hits you when he has a handsaw, he is dealing 2 to you if he hits a live shell. So that changes the math, and that changes, potentially what you want to be doing. And so you may consider shooting yourself if the dealer has a handsaw, and then alternatively, you may consider shooting yourself if you have one in order to preserve, basically not waste a handsaw or be less likely to waste a handsaw. You'll have to kind of crunch the numbers and figure out which scenarios, but the one earlier that I mentioned, where it's 1 and 1 left and you have a handsaw, generally going to be better to shoot yourself first, and then if you get the blank, you shoot them for a guaranteed 2. And if you hit yourself on the first one, it was a 50-50 shot anyway, and you get to keep your handsaw, right? Third factor that you want to take into account, you have to have 2 or more health. If you have 1 health, then you never want to shoot yourself, okay? Because you're just taking the dealer's turn for him, basically. The next shot, the next live that connects with you is going to kill you. The only reason that you're considering shooting yourself here is that you could potentially be taking less damage or not dying if the dealer has a handsaw, right? So that is completely nullified if you take any hit and you end up dying, because you just want to take as few shots to you as possible. And if you're shooting yourself, you're just taking the dealer's turn for him. So you only consider it if you have 2 or more health. And then the other one is when you could kill the dealer in the next loadout if he doesn't get an opportunity to use cigarettes. That was the last scenario I showed there. Basically, in that scenario, we want to deprive the dealer of taking a turn so that he can heal, so he can't heal back up to 3 and get out of us likely killing him in the next loadout. Okay? So in that scenario, you may consider shooting yourself, but that scenario is really only going to happen if you have handcuffs, because if you don't have handcuffs and you end up shooting yourself over and over again, if you hit the live one earlier than the last position, basically, he's still going to get another turn even when they're all blanks, and he's going to heal back up anyway. So shooting yourself would do nothing for you there. So you need a pair of handcuffs in that scenario to make it worth it. So, as I said, these are pretty rare circumstances, relatively rare. Most of the time, you're just going to be shooting the dealer. All right. Additional considerations. Even if there are only blanks left, shoot the dealer and let him waste items. So, if there's like 4 blanks left, you shoot the dealer. If he's still got handcuffs, handsaw, etc., he can potentially be wasting them, right? Magnifying glasses. He's going to use anything because he still doesn't know what those shells are, even though we do. This guy doesn't count. He just knows what the last one is. So he's going to be wasting all of his items. He's going to be, potentially if he gets coin flips to shoot you, he's going to be wasting his handsaws. So just let him waste his items. Don't shoot yourself 4 times. Shoot him and then let him go. And then, let him waste his items. Of course, take into consideration that he might have cigarettes or something like that. In which case you might not want to let him go and then you'd shoot yourself a bunch of times. But oftentimes, just shoot him, let him use all of his fucking items and waste them, get no value out of them, etc., etc., etc. Let the dealer play for you, buddy. All right. Also, you may want to shoot yourself on a carry. This is really niche. This is what I was talking about earlier. This is one scenario where I could think of shooting yourself even if there's more than one round. But this is relatively risky depending on the circumstances, but if you have the opportunity to take advantage of it, you might consider it. So, you may want to shoot yourself on carryover rounds in an attempt to get the dealer to use items so he doesn't get to carry them over into the next round. So, for those of you who haven't played Endless Mode, in Endless Mode, every 3rd round, before you do the double or nothing, any items that you don't use and the dealer doesn't use are carried over into the next round. So we start off with them. Those rounds, those carryover rounds, the ones after them, so basically the first round of the set of 3, is particularly dangerous because if you end up in a scenario where the dealer has a fuckload of magnifying glasses and a bunch of handsaws and shit, and if you're at like 2 health or whatever, if it ever goes to the dealer's turn, you could end up dying. Okay? So in the carryover round, let's say you're at 4 health or something and the dealer's at 1. What you may want to do is stall so the dealer will shoot at you and use all of his items before you get to the carryover round, basically the next round. He'll waste a bunch of his items and then you'll have better odds in the next round, right? So if you can tank a few hits, it might be good to shoot yourself without killing the dealer just to allow him to fuck himself over in the future. But that's a pretty niche scenario, but it's something to consider. It's just one scenario I could think of where you may want to shoot yourself even though there's maybe 2 lives and 4 blanks or something like that, right? But that is pretty rare, and as I said, it's pretty risky as well. You're not going to usually have a lot of opportunity to do something like that. So, anyway, I just thought I should mention it because it, could be interesting. All right, finally, conclusions. Let's just kind of summarize what we've learned here. All right. Number 1 is that the main thing you want to be doing in this game, barring, other item usage, where you're trying to combo magnifying glasses with handsaws, etc., is that you want to maximize the number of shots on the dealer. That is the most important thing. The more shots you take, no matter what the odds of each individual shot are of hitting, the more damage you're going to be doing on average, right? So even if you have an 80% chance of missing a shot, it is better to aim that shot at the dealer because you will get more shots on him throughout the round, assumedly. So just the more shots that are going at the dealer, the better. Total. All right? Number 2, when items aren't considered, it's never better to shoot yourself over dealer. At best, it's neutral. So, that scenario I mentioned earlier, if it's 1 and 1, it doesn't matter if you shoot yourself versus the dealer. All right? It's always going to be at least the same or worse to shoot yourself versus the dealer. So if you just have cigarettes in a round and nothing that gives you any information or anything like that, or, if you have no items at all, you always shoot the dealer. It's brain dead mode, all right? Just turn your brain off and just shoot the dealer no matter what, you know, barring maybe if he has handsaws, you don't do that. But I'm saying if you're not considering any items, if neither player has any items at all, just shoot dealer every time, okay? Point number 3, there are scenarios when you want to shoot yourself, but this is almost never going to be the case if there's more than one live shell left. As I said, there are some scenarios, like I said in the carryover round, bullshit, that you may want to, but that's very rare. None of the other time, pretty much, I can think of a scenario where you'd want to shoot yourself on like a 2 and 4, for example. That's not going to help you, like 99% of the time. And I just can't think of a scenario where it would. If you can think of one, let me know, but just you don't even really need to consider it unless there's one live shell, okay? And then basically when you are shooting yourself, when there's one live shell, it's a form of like risk mitigation, where you're willing to take worse odds in the current loadout to ensure surviving to the next. All right? So anyway, that was my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. I love a good fucking slide deck, and let me tell you, this one I made it in PowerPoint. It was way better. I'm sorry to my Google Slides gang. I betrayed you. I abandoned my child. I abandoned my boy. But the animation feature in Google Slides, man, it's fucking dog shit, bro. Pretty ass. Pretty ass, all right? It was better. I would have continued to use it, but I swapped on over to PowerPoint, Microsoft gang. Anyway, hope you enjoyed watching. Hope this was informative. Even if you knew that you should be shooting the dealer every time, it might be surprising to find out that you should be shooting dealer every time, even if there's 1 live and 4 blanks, right? And the kind of the math behind it. I hope it was easy enough to follow and understand. If you want me to get into more complex math and shit, it's not even that complex with the dealer. I just didn't think it'd be that interesting. But if people want to see that, I can do a short little video, maybe going over the math of how I calculated that 65%, etc. But anyway, thank you for subscribing, watching, etc. The quest for the Billy continues, and I hope you all have a good night. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.